everyone, and welcome to the Ballhawk Sports Podcast. We have a great episode for you today. We're going to be going through Major League Baseball, getting prepped for the start of the regular season, as we had the first two games over in Tokyo happen this week. I'm also going to go through some reward predictions for both leagues and division predictions. But let's start off with that Tokyo series. So we had two games between the Dodgers and the Cubs happening in the Tokyo Dome in Tokyo, Japan. Really great that baseball's been started this. The Dodgers alone bring a huge audience with their Japanese and Asian-born players, continuing to grow as they sign Roki Sasaki this last offseason. Yamamoto last offseason, they signed Shohei Ohtani to a contract in free agency last offseason as well. And they signed Ha-seong Kim from, I believe it was the Korean League as well. So a lot of Japanese fans in that LAD biosphere, basically. So they're very happy to once again see their that team in Japan playing their two games. Now, it's also nice that the Cubs got to go there because they signed Shoto Imanga last offseason. He is a former Japanese League pitcher who had a really good rookie year last year. Started off really, really well, probably top 3-4 in the Cy Young in the first half of the season. Fell off a little bit, as new players to the league typically do. But still had a great season last year, hoping to follow it up this year as well. But let's start off with game one. It was Yamamoto versus Imanga. Both pitchers pitched really well. It was looking like a pitcher's duel through the first 5 innings that both pitchers went. The Cubs had a 1-0 lead. And then when Imanga was pulled, Ben Brown, who's a rookie starting pitcher, kind of swingman for the Cubs, came in and had some control issues that ended up leading to him coughing up that lead and eventually taking the loss for this game. Now, the Dodgers did get to flex that great bullpen that they have with their new free agency signing, Tanner Scott, finishing off the game with his first save as a Dodger. Also to highlight in that game, Shohei Ohtani had a single and a double with 2 runs scored, really getting a show out for his hometown Tokyo Japanese crowd. In game 2, you had Roki Sasaki versus Justin Steele. Now, as opposed to the first game, this game did not start off well for either starter. Sasaki had trouble keeping the ball in the strike zone. However, he did only allow 1 run through 3 innings that he went. He did walk, I believe it was 5 people. Let me check real fast. Yeah, he had 5 walks, 3 strikeouts, the 1 run on the 1 run on 1 hit. So, he didn't do bad. He threw 56 pitches, which I'm sure they didn't want him to get shelled. And when you have issues hitting the strike zone, it's really just never good for you. Justin Steele on the other side, he did not have a good outing. He went 4 innings, gave up 5 runs on 5 hits. He did have 5 Ks, but still, he's a guy he's a really good pitcher. He's going to get you strikeouts throughout the season. His stuff will get a little flat and a little, when he misses bad in the zone, as evidenced by the fact that he doesn't walk a lot of guys. But he does get strikeouts, and he is susceptible to the long ball, which is what bit him as he gave up 2 homers. Now, the guys coming out of the Dodgers pen did not do as good as last week, as the game before. Unfortunately, as Luis Garcia came out, gave up a run on 2 hits, and then Jamie Dreyer came out, also gave up a run on 2 hits. But then one of the really underrated parts of the Dodgers bullpen, or the potential Dodgers staff in general, is all of the young pitchers that they have. They can't all be starters. So now you have guys like Landon Knack, who came into this game, pitched 2 innings, got 3 Ks, only gave up 1 hit, and earning the win, able to throw multiple innings for them. That's really useful when you have an older bullpen with some older guys out there, like Blake Trinan, Kirby Yates, that are going to need more days off, or just could benefit from more days off. If you have guys like Knack and some other guys potentially down the line coming back from injury, it really helps them to be able to get extra days off, and those guys go multiple innings. Really an underrated part of the Dodgers bullpen. The highlight of this game, at the end in the 9th inning, Shohei Ohtani did end up homering which was really nice to see for that crowd. That crowd in Japan. So I'm sure they all like to see that. It was, funnily enough, under review for a little bit, but it did get called a homer. So it was really nice for that crowd to get to do that. And to finish off the game, they had a new closer come out and throw. It was Alex Vesia, which really, theoretically, if they do this method, which is possible, they could have a different guy closing every game based on matchups. I mean, Kirby Yates came in the 8th and got it done, and then Vesia came in to finish it off. It doesn't, in my mind, really matter who's closing games as long as the big outs are being made. It's definitely like a forward-thinking, analytics-based mindset. But when you have this many good arms in your bullpen, that's not exactly, they're able to do that. A lot of teams aren't able to do that, but they are one of the teams that are able to do that. Now, getting into my reward predictions for this next season, for the MVP and the Cy Young, it's not, I have kind of the favorites. It's not very flashy. It's not very, out there. But I also don't think that those are awards that really lend themselves right now. I think baseball is a very top-heavy. The stars are the stars, and that's who it is. But let's get into it. Let's start with the MVP award. In the AL, I have Bobby Witt Jr. taking home the MVP, with Judge getting second and Gunnar Henderson getting third. It's really nice that the AL has these young shortstops that are able to be superstars for them. Could be faces of the league. I mean, Bobby Witt Jr. is just on another level, and I think that he still has more to give into his game. He hit 30-30 last year, over 30 homers, over 30 steals. He won the batting title. He would have won MVP had Aaron Judge not done what he did last year. But with the changes to the Yankees lineup, hopefully Aaron Judge is able to get the support that he got from Soto last year, but with Soto not being there, getting replaced by Cody Bellinger, a young guy, and Jason Dominguez, Paul Goldschmidt, and some others. Hopefully that team is more well-rounded, but I don't expect Aaron Judge to put up the numbers that he did last year, batting .320 with 58 homers and 144 RBIs. I don't expect those kind of monster numbers. I do expect him to hit probably around 300, probably over 50 homers and over 100 RBIs. But I do expect Bobby Witt to just have the season that cements him as potentially the best player in baseball, which is already in that conversation. But I think this is the season that he comes out and takes that extra step that the best players take. And then I have Gunnar Henderson coming in third. Great player, great hitter. Specifically, he ended up with 38 homers last year. He did falter towards the end of the season. He is a guy like Judge. He can strike out a lot, and that can kind of hurt him, especially in his batting average section. That's really the only thing that he's missing compared to the other two. I think that the other two in Witt and Judge are so much higher on that tier than Gunnar, just because they both bat over 300. Witt's going to steal 30 bags and have 30 homers, whereas Judge is going to have 50 homers and 120 RBIs. He's going to go crazy like that, and then you also have the Yankees effect in there where, whether you like him or hate him, you're going to hear about him. Gunnar Henderson playing for the Orioles, a little bit quieter. He's also not a loud guy himself, so he's not going to make a lot of the audio clips that everyone loves to see. And I really think he could take a step forward, where some of that might also be contingent on whether the Orioles are able to continue their growth. But, that'll remain to be seen. Going over to the NL, for the MVP race, I do have Shohei Ohtani grabbing another one. I don't think that it's close in the NL. I think that there is literally one tier of Ohtani, and then below that you have all the other superstars. Especially if he can come back and pitch at the rate that he was. I will say I am not a believer that for the rest of his contract he will pitch more than half of the games, let alone like maybe not even like half of the seasons for the length of that contract, just because he is such a great hitter. And I think there might come a point where his recovery from the numerous arm injuries that he has, because hitting and pitching is a lot on your body. It's a lot to do and to have to undertake. And I don't. He's a special one. He's the first guy since Babe Ruth to do a lot of things for this sport. And there probably won't be anyone coming up that's gonna replicate it anytime soon. I mean, it's more possible. Teams, and especially at a younger age, people are more willing to let players try it. I think Ohtani was definitely helped by the fact that he started up in Japan. I think if he had started up here, he might have just ended up being, a typical right fielder who bats really well. But he was able to throw. He throws really well. He's supposed to recover from his 2 surgeries, as he had surgery after the World Series as well, and end up pitching in probably late May, and go from there. Most likely, they'll employ a 6-man rotation similar to what the Angels did for him, and have him pitch like every Sunday, every Saturday. They'll pick a day of the week. He'll pitch that day. It'll most likely be Friday or Sunday, so that they could potentially work their off days into right after his starts. So I would guess it would be Sunday. Because now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like Friday's after the day off. I think they'd rather have the day off after he pitches, so that his arms can recover. But either way, you'll get one day. It'll be Ohtani Day, and then everyone else will work around that, which will be good because that rotation in general, very injury prone. I mean, even the guys they have in there now, they're relying on guys that could go down on the IL at any point, as it showed last year. But that team's also great. They're not gonna need it. But I don't expect Shohei Ohtani to go 50-50 again, especially when he starts pitching. So maybe a 40-30. He probably could get that 40 homers, 30 stolen bases. I would put his over under at like probably 38.5 homers and like 29.5 steals. I don't know. He is over 30. He is going to start to slow down at some point. And I think the weight of hitting and pitching has always kind of pulled the hitting numbers down, especially the stolen base numbers too. I mean, he hasn't had a season like last season his whole career, obviously. So either way, I do expect him to win MVP again. I think that when he's on and healthy, there's no one that stands up to him at all in the terms of what he can do and the impact he makes, especially on the league. As the runner-up, though, I do have Kyle Tucker coming through for the Cubs as they acquired him in the offseason from the Astros. I think he has all the potential in the world to be one of the top-end hitters in this league. And I think the Cubs, as I'll show later on in my division predictions, I think the Cubs are a team that really surprises a lot of people this season. And I think that he's the epitome of that. He's what starts it. He's going to be what drives that team to the next level. And I think that it'll get reflected in the MVP votes as he comes in second. And then in third, I have the New York Mets signing Juan Soto. He's a perennial top 5 MVP candidate every year, dating back to his Nationals days. There's not much else to say about him. Everyone knows what he's about now that he's gotten paid as much as he has. And he got a year in the spotlight with the Yankees last year, helping to bring them to the World Series. I do not think he has the same effect on the Mets, which is why I have him at third in this MVP race. I think that similar to last year, with Judge pulling some votes from Soto, I think Lindor might pull some votes away from Soto. I also think that the pitching staff for the Mets is going to hold them back, and I don't think voters like giving, guys with comparable numbers on teams that are fringe playoff teams don't typically win MVP, and I think that's a situation Juan Soto is going to find himself in this year. I think that he'll win an MVP at some point in his career, but even in the NL, I think you're going to have to wait for Ohtani to hit that downslide or just get older and not be so otherworldly to even have a shot at the MVP. Moving on now to the AL Cy Young. I do have Tariq Skubal in the AL, repeating. I think that similar to years past, the best pitcher in the leagues typically they go in waves. They like to, Scherzer wins 2 and Verlander wins 2 or 3. And barring injury, I think that Skubal is able to repeat. I think that in the AL with the pitching, it's a lot of like 1B guys, like not like top tier pitchers. I think that those more reside in the NL, which is why the NL is a little bit more harder to predict. But I think that Skubal is the best pitcher in the AL. He will continue to show that. He'll strike out guys. He'll go deep into games. He'll keep his ERA down, and he'll help to drive that upstart Detroit Tigers team hopefully back to the playoffs. Coming in second, the runner-up, I have Logan Gilbert. I think that he takes that next step. He's getting more experienced and older. He's still in his 20s, which is great for Seattle, but I think that he's able to take that next step, really put together the full fantastic pitching season that he had a great year last year, but I think that he takes that extra next step similar to Kyle Tucker without changing teams. And he's able to come in right below Skubal. And then third, I have Cole Reagans. He's really shown that the Rangers made a mistake moving him to the Royals, and the Royals have helped him develop. They have a great catching battery over there. They develop pitching really well, as you can see by the pitching staff last year was great when they had veteran cast-offs Seth Lugo and Michael Lawrence and Michael Wacha, and then able to develop Cole Reagans. Brady Singer had a nice recovery last year and then was traded in the offseason. But yeah, I look for Cole Reagans to continue to build on what he's done and really solidify himself into the upper echelon of American League pitchers for this year and years to come. Now moving on to the NL Cy Young, I have Paul Skeens getting it done. I think that the only thing stopping him from being a top 3 Cy Young guy for the next 5 years is an injury, and he seems to be really durable. And the Pirates, unfortunately for Pirates fans, have the luxury of treating him with kid gloves, as I don't think that they're going to be very competitive this year. I think that offense just isn't good enough to even think about competing. You'd have to have a lot of guys take an extra step that I don't think they're going to. I think they'll pitch well. I think they'll lose a lot of 2-1, 3-1, 3-2, 1-0 games. It'll be a little gruesome for them, but I think Paul Skeens gets it done, gets the NL Cy Young. I think he would have won it last year had he not missed a month and a half to start the season, which is neither here nor there. He still won the Rookie of the Year for them, but whether he needed that time in the minors or not, it cost him the Cy Young, and I think that he gets the job done this year. My number 2 is contingent on him staying in the NL, whether it's with the Padres or getting traded to an NL team, which I wouldn't see, especially if the Padres are fringe playoff teams by the time the trade deadline comes around. I would look for him to get traded to the AL, not get kept in the NL, but that's not what we're focusing on here. What I want to focus on here is his consistency and his ability to keep guys off the scoreboard. He had last year, I think he had around a 70% left on base rate, which some people look at and go, well, that means he's going to have some regression. And I look at that and I think he threw almost 190 innings. He had over 200 strikeouts for the third or fourth year in a row. So he walks a little bit too much guys than you'd like. He can get a little touch and go with his feel. But I think that if he cuts down on that a little bit, doesn't let guys jump on him early, I think that he can get himself up there. I believe that he finished top 5 last year as well. So I think that he pushes up to number 2. And at number 3, I have Logan Webb. Kind of took a step back last year. With the San Francisco Giants, I think that they're going to be predicated on good pitching and good defense, as they were when they were winning those World Series titles in the 2010s, especially with Buster Posey back at the helm now, not back at the helm, but at the helm now. So I expect Logan Webb to have a great season, reestablish himself as a top-of-the-line ace. He's always been an innings eater. He's gonna throw close to 200 innings, provided health. So it'll be hopefully nice to see him take that extra step and finish as the third in the Cy Young race. Now, moving on to Rookie of the Year, these are always really hard to predict. There's always seems to be someone that comes out of nowhere and wins this award. Last year it was Luis Heel who came out of nowhere for the Yankees and won the AL Rookie of the Year award in a kind of underwhelming rookie class, especially compared to the NL, where you had a phenomenal class last year. You could have given it to Skeens, Merrill for the Padres, the center fielder, or to Chourio. The amazing thing for the Padres and the Brewers is Chourio was, for most parts of the season, the youngest player in baseball, and he really solved it in that second half of the season. So that was really nice for them to see. I mean, he didn't play bad. He played okay in the first half, but then he really showed the promise that led to him getting extended before he even played a game. And then Jackson Merrill converted from shortstop to center field, showed out. He's not a guy that's going to take a lot of walks, but he's going to hit like 270, 280. He's going to slug. I mean, he had an over 500 slug last year, and he's going to play good defense. And he's also young. I believe he's 21, 22 years old. So both those teams have really nice guys coming up. And then Paul Skeens is Paul Skeens. I don't think that there's anything more to be said about him. But starting off in the AL, I have Jackson Jobe, the starting pitcher for the Tigers, winning the award, with the left fielder Jason Dominguez for the Yankees coming in second, and the shortstop Jacob Wilson from the Athletics coming in third. Now, I want to start there with Wilson. He is a well-regarded prospect who got a taste of the majors last year and then had a hamstring pull that kept him out of a large chunk of the last part of the season. I think that he's ready. I think that he is going to fit really well with those guys. I mean, they're not a great team, but they have a little bit of an offense. Their problem right now is pitching. I mean, I think if you put them and the Pirates together, that'd be a really good team, but unfortunately that's not how baseball works. But so I have Wilson coming in third. I think that he has a good year. Probably something similar to Zach Neto last year. Probably goes 2020, bats like 260, 270, good defense, ends up as a 3-4 WAR player, and proves that he is a good starting shortstop for the Athletics. Now, going to number 2, Jason Dominguez. He's had some troubles defensively in left field. I mean, that kept him out of playing in the playoffs for the Yankees last year in favor of Alex Verdugo, who, a report came out recently, he's not even gotten a major league contract offer, so I don't know what the Yankees were doing there, but he's filling in now. They didn't bring in any competition for him. He hasn't really had much competition. I mean, the only competition that he really had in camp was another top prospect, Everson Pereira, for the Yankees, who is coming off Tommy John surgery and can't play the field. That's the only real other player that was challenging him at all. Not a bad thing, but he is going to start the year in left. There's a chance the Yankees have been talking about getting a platoon hitter for him, or not just for him, possibly to play third base as well. So that's something to look out for, but I do think that he fulfills the promise that he's had. He was nicknamed the Martian before he was even signed because of his size and ability to just punish a ball, and that he's also got really good speed for a guy with as much power, as much build as him. So I expect him to, 2020 easy. Maybe you get 30 homers out of him. I think it'll depend on how quick he starts. If you go back to when he started his career in 2023, he came out of the gate really hot, hit a bunch of homers, and then he blew out his elbow and needed Tommy John. Had some trouble recovering, in his recovery, kind of trying to get back to game ready. He did have an oblique strain that kept him out even longer. He was able to get back at the end of the season. So look for him to give my number 1 prediction here a run for his money, but that is Jackson Jobe. Jackson Jobe is a former top 10. I think some people might have even had him top 5 prospect for the Tigers, former top pick for them. I just think his stuff is nasty. He's not Paul Skeens level out here. He's not going to come out and blow the doors off everyone, possibly win the Cy Young. But I think if he breaks camp with the number 5 spot, which I believe it looks like he is supposed to, I think that he can really show guys why he was ranked where he was in the prospect field. And I think that he and Skubal and Flaherty will form a nice duo that'll get Job rewarded at the end of the season with that Rookie of the Year. Now, moving on to the National League Rookie of the Year. I do have the favorite pulling it out. I have Dylan Cruz, outfielder for the Nationals, winning this award. I have third baseman Matt Shaw for the Cubs coming in second, and then Roki Sasaki coming in third for the Dodgers starting pitcher. Now let's do this backwards as well, starting with Sasaki. There's 2 things that I think will keep him from winning this award this year. That is health, and that is walks. I think that because of some injuries that he had last year and some, he's a little bit of a diminutive guy. He doesn't have the prototypical size that you'd want, but his pitches move like crazy. And sometimes because of that, he's not able to really control where the ball is going, and he'll end up walking a lot of guys, as was shown in the Tokyo series. And I think the Dodgers are going to treat their pitchers with a little bit of bubble wrap, and I don't know if they'll fully unleash Sasaki at all this year, let alone enough for him to win the Rookie of the Year award. I mean, here's hoping. I hope that he has a great season, fulfills the promise that he has, but I don't think that happens this year. I think it's similar to what Yamamoto would have done last year had he not gotten hurt, and that was, pitched well, but not deep. But we'll see. I think it'll really depend on how much the Dodgers want to unleash him throughout the season. But going to number 2, I have Matt Shaw. I think that the Cubs kind of confirmed he is their third baseman. The majority third baseman this year by activating him and letting him play in the Tokyo series, both games. Struggled a little bit. He has some swing and miss in his game, and a hitch in his swing that will either need to get fixed or just proving that that's how he swings and how he can do it. But good speed, good power, good contact. He was a college guy, got drafted in the first round 2 years ago in the 2023 draft. Coming up quick, and I think that he'll be able to help extend that Cubs lineup, which, as I said when we talked about Tucker for the MVP, I think the Cubs are an upstart team here and really able to surprise some people. I think Matt Shaw is going to be a big part of that. Now, winning the award, Dylan Cruz, I think him and James Wood come out this year and show that the Nationals are building something that's going to work. I like what Cruz brings to the table. He's going to bat 260, 270, probably have a 340, 350 on base percentage, and slug 450, 470, something like that. He'll hit 20 homers. He'll steal 20, 30 bags. He'll just have a really good season. Probably end up with similar numbers to Churio, I'd probably say, as he did last year, but really establish himself as a building block with James Wood out there in the Nationals outfield. I mean, National fans, I think, should be really happy. I think they have a lot of good things going for them, and I think Cruz just helps to show that. So those are our award predictions. We're going to move on now to division predictions. I'm going to go East, Central, West, starting with the AL. So we're going to start in the AL East. I have the Rays coming in last. I have the Blue Jays coming in fourth, the Red Sox coming in third, the Orioles coming in second, and the Yankees coming in first. I will say, you can call me biased all you want. I am a Yankees fan. I do believe in that team, but I also think when I get to my playoff predictions at the end, I don't expect them to do a lot with what they have, more than what they did last year. I think that they won't blow as many saves, but I think not having Garrett Cole, not having Luis Heel to start the season at least, puts them in a little bit of a dire spot with their rotation. And I think when you're already looking at their team and going, do they have enough hitting, to also be like, do they have enough pitching? It's really not where you want them to end up, but I think Cody Bellinger's been on fire this whole start of the season in spring training. I think that's a huge help. If he's able to even come close to the MVP numbers that he had in 2019, that just changes this team completely. And then you also have Paul Goldschmidt, who's been looking better than he did last year with the Cardinals. I think some of that might get chalked up to he started the year bad. He was trying to recover. He might have overplayed some stuff with his mechanics. And then also, I think there's an aspect, especially in baseball, where you have to stay locked in for so long because the seasons are so long that he might have just not had the drive, at 35, 36 years old. I could get it. But I think the Yankees will be in it all season. I think they pull it off, and they're able to win that division. Now, I think part of the reason they can win that division is because of the Orioles pitching staff. I think if the Orioles had a better pitching staff, they'd be easily the team to beat in this division, but they don't. Grayson Rodriguez is already starting the year off on the IL. He had some injury issues last year as well. And then you have Corbin Burns moved on to the Diamondbacks in free agency. They replaced him with Charlie Morton. Morton's 41 years old now. His stuff looks good, but if you look at his numbers last year, he was a guy that had a good start and then a bad start and then a good start and a bad start, and he kind of just yo-yoed the whole season. I would kind of expect more of the same. I mean, he'll probably be durable. I wouldn't expect him to see him miss a lot of starts. But, I mean, when you go from a potential Cy Young winner and a former Cy Young winner in Corbin Burns to a 41-year-old Charlie Morton who's going to give you average numbers, that's a step back. And then you also have, Dean Kramer hasn't been looking good. Kyle Bradish is out with the Tommy John surgery. I just think that the Orioles pitching staff is just problems. I will say, having Felix Bautista back in their bullpen as their closer will help them out. He was an all-world, all-dominant closer in 2023 before he blew out his own elbow, which will be something to keep an eye on, whether he's used to the same frequency that he was back in 2023, or if they kind of pull back a lot. He pitched a lot. He got hurt in, I believe it was August or early September, and I think he'd already thrown like 70 innings at that point. Like he was pitching a lot. They were riding him. But he is a phenomenal closer with really, really good stuff. Helped solidify the end of that bullpen, something that Craig Kimbrell last year was not able to do. I don't think Bautista will be having any problems with that, but they have already come out and said that he won't be pitching back-to-back days through April and potentially farther. So we'll see how long that goes and how much they treat him with bubble wrap. Now, in third, right in the middle, I have the Boston Red Sox. I think that their team is a lot of projection. I think that you can look and be like, oh, well, they have 5 top prospects. Some of them have to be good, and they have all this pitching, and some of them need to be good. What I like to do with those kind of things is look at it and go, okay, well, if you have 2 players that could be great and could be terrible, you split it. One's going to be great, one's going to be terrible. So, I mean, if you look at it, and their pitching staff was a gimmick last year, if you dig into the numbers, like really dig into the numbers on the Red Sox, they just stopped throwing fastballs. That was their gimmick. They didn't throw fastballs. They only threw curveballs and sliders, sweepers, off-speed, change-ups, and then the sinker was their pitch that they had to throw it. But they easily threw the most off-speed pitches throughout the season. And I think, especially around the All-Star break, after the All-Star break, teams caught on to that. They were no longer sitting fastball. They would sit slider. And they got rocked for it. And then you also have some injury concerns with Walker Buehler, Lucas Giolito coming off Tommy John. Buehler just with some, in general, efficiency and just injury problems. That was a risk. And then the guys they have already in-house are a risk. I think getting Garrett Crochet, a big plus. He held up last year. He did end up only throwing a max of 4 innings for the last month and a half of the season, which was good because he stayed healthy, but not good because the Red Sox are really, I think they're going to just take the training wheels off of him, and let's see what we get. I think that he pitches really well. I think the people predicting him to win the Cy Young or anything like that is going too far. I think it's expecting too much from the kid, who was a relief pitcher. He was rushed to majors by the White Sox and then just got switched to a starting pitcher last year. great strikeout numbers, but some walks can be some issues for him as well. The Blue Jays, I just think that they're old and they have holes. Their pitching rotation is really old. I mean, you got Scherzer and Gausman and Bassett, who are over 34. I think they're all over 34. It might even be over 35. Scherzer's already having some injury issues. Bassett had some efficiency issues last year, as did Gausman, as Gausman didn't look like the pitcher that he did the previous years. So I expect their rotation to be underwhelming, and even with a Bo Bichette bounce back, which isn't a guarantee, I expect him to be better than he was last year, but not as great as he was previous years. I don't believe in the offense as much. Getting in Santander was a boost for them, to be sure, but I don't think it's enough. And the Tampa Bay Rays, I think that they're just a rebuilding team. As they typically do, they're just shuffling their pieces around. They have a lot of good pitching. I think that some of their hitters, specifically Brandon Lowe and Josh Lau, and some of their other lefties, will be helped by the fact that they're playing in the Yankees spring training stadium, which, if you're not aware, is the exact same dimensions as the Yankee Stadium Park. So they have that short porch, technically short porch, in right. That'll help out those lefty swingers. But really just look for them to pitch well, once in a while have a good hitting day, and eventually sell off some pieces of the trade deadline. And that's why I have them in 5th. Moving on to the AL Central, this was a little bit harder to predict for me, just because I think all these Central teams in other divisions aren't winning anything. I think in the West they don't win, in the East they don't win, in some of the NL divisions they don't win either. But they're in their own division, so they get to have a shot. I have the Royals coming in 1st, Tigers coming in 2nd, the Twins coming in 3rd, the Guardians in 4th, and the White Sox in 5th. We'll go bottom up. I think the White Sox can be the worst team in the league. I think the Marlins are going to give them a run for their money, but I think that the Marlins have a little bit more pitching, and I think that'll be the difference between them being the worst and the White Sox being the worst. I think the White Sox will be the worst because even when they score 5 runs, they'll give up 7. I think that's just their reality right now. Hopefully it can change for them, but not this year. I had the Guardians falling from winning the division to 4th place. I think that they downgraded their offense, getting rid of Josh Naylor. I like Kyle Manzardo as a replacement there, but not to the level that Naylor did last year. And then I think just overall, I think losing Andres Jimenez is a little bit of a hurt for their offense. He was a pretty consistent player that was able to help defensively, definitely, but also give something offensively. I think the replacements they have for him are, until Bazzano is ready, I think that they're just questionable. And I really was looking for Chase DeLauder, their top outfield prospect, to come out and try to push, Lane Thomas or John Kensky Noel for a spot. It doesn't seem to have happened. I believe he got hurt again. So unfortunately, they're rolling out probably Noel in right and Thomas in center. Thomas is not a good defensive center fielder. Kwan will cover some of that in left, but, with the bat, he's not anything special. And then Noel is going to be a minus defender and a plus offensive player. I know they signed Carlos Santana, but I think by the end of the year, their best lineup probably has Noel at DH and Manzardo at first instead of Santana, and Santana on the bench. I think that their starting pitching have the same problems as last year. I expect Gavin Williams, if he stays healthy, to pitch good. I expect Tristan McKenzie to recover a little bit, Tanner Bibby to continue his trajectory. But Ben Lively's nothing to cry home about. Alex Cobb's already hurt. So, we'll see. But I don't expect big things from the Guardians. I also expect their bullpen to not be otherworldly. I think their bullpen won them a lot of games last year. Was a difference between them getting caught by the Tigers and the Royals. Ended up winning that division because of that bullpen. But I also think that you got to look at the postseason and realize that your bullpen can't save you always. Moving on, I think the Twins fall in number 3. I think that they're just an average team. I think their pitching has potential, but gets hurt a lot, and then has a pretty significant drop from the Ryan, Ober, Lopez trio up top to whoever ends up being next. And then their offense is just injury prone. Royce Lewis is already hurt. Byron Buxton is due to get hurt at any point. And then everyone else is kind of just a hodgepodge. I mean, Correa might play good, and then he could get hurt just like last year. So a lot of question marks there. And like I said earlier, when you have guys that, they have great potential and then they also have great faults, you got to fall somewhere in the middle. I think that's exactly what this Twins team is, similar to the Red Sox in the East. In second, I have the Tigers. I think this more has to go with the steps I think the Royals take versus the step I think the Tigers take. I think the Tigers end up I think that their lineup ends up as okay, maybe a little bit better than average, and their pitching rotation is going to be above average, obviously, with Skubal, Flaherty, and Job. But you also look at their rotation and you go, Job's a rookie, Flaherty has injury issues. Who else do they have pitching for them? They'll have Olsen, who's solid but not good, not special. They have Montero, who did a better job piggybacking last year off of an opener. You have Matt Manning, who's just never been able to establish himself. So I just think there's enough question marks and enough things. I mean, even in their lineup, you got to look and you got to be like, okay, well, that guy needs to fulfill his promise. That guy needs to fulfill his promise. That guy needs to fulfill his promise. And it's a lot of guys that need to take that next step. So I think to put them as the division winner because they were hot at the end of last season is just too much. And then I have the Royals winning the division, which I think is where they belong. I think they're a good team. I think they have good players. I think Bobby Witt Jr. taking that next step is going to help them. I think getting Jonathan India to put in front of Witt was a huge addition. And I think that rotation continues to pitch well as it did last year. And don't sleep on Lucas Ursig, their closer that they got from Oakland last year, the trade deadline. He is nasty. He will get strikeouts. He will blow some guys away. And I think that he establishes himself as one of the top closers in the league this season. Now, going over to the AL West, I have the Rangers putting it together and winning that division. I have the Mariners coming in second behind that great pitching staff. I have the Astros coming in third, the Athletics coming in fourth, and the Angels coming in fifth. Now, going top down again, the Angels keep trying to hit free agency and get better, and it's not happening. Guys don't really want to go there anymore because there's, Trout has worn off. The flair on him is worn off when his injuries happen. He's already had to get moved off center field just to keep him healthy, which I agree with. I think it should have happened a while ago, and maybe he'd be better, but we'll see how that works out. They took a bunch of swings. Hopefully some of them hit. Probably some of them will miss as well. And I think their pitching staff is below average, and that's always been the problem with the Angels. The Angels is their below average pitching staff. The Athletics, similar situation as the Angels, but better potential. Their hitters they showed out last year. Brent Rooker had a great season. I believe he had an over 900 OPS. And then you have Lawrence Butler, just got extended. He had a great breakout season. J.J. Bleday showed in center field that he can hit and play some good defense. You have Jacob Wilson, who I have having a good year as a rookie at shortstop. And Zach Geloff hopefully can recover. Shea Langeliers had a great under-the-radar year at catcher last year. And then hopefully Tyler Soderstrom can take that next step at first base. But really, they're gonna, how high they climb in the rankings will be completely dependent on their ability to pitch. They signed Luis Severino. They acquired Jeffrey Springs from the Rays in the offseason. They signed Jose Leclerc to help their bullpen out. I don't think it's enough to push them. I also don't think that they necessarily want, as an ownership group, I'm sure as a team they want to, as an ownership group, they want to have their potential fulfilled this year. I look at them and go, they want to compete when they're in Vegas. When they hit their first season in Vegas, they want to be like, we're coming for you, which is not this year in Sacramento. So I think they're biding their time. I think even if they're good, you could probably see them sell off a couple pieces like they did last year at the trade deadline. But yeah, other than that, Mason Miller is special in the bullpen. Had a great year last year. Having a great year this year. But that's kind of all they are. And then in the middle, the Astros, it's similar to the Twins and the Red Sox and other divisions. They have so much up and down projection stuff that I'm like, okay, well then they'll finish in the middle, and that's where they'll end up. Adding Isaac Paredes, I think, was an under-the-radar move in the Kyle Tucker trade. I think that he's built for those Crawford boxes. But their pitching can't stay healthy. And then you could also see, they kept Framber Valdez despite the fact that he's due a contract at the end of the season, and they will not re-sign him. So watch him hit free agency or get traded if the Astros aren't good enough. They lost Alex Bregman. They weren't able to re-sign him. They're moving Jose Altuve to left field to keep Yordan healthy and at DH. I can't even tell you who their replacement in right field is. I just think that they have a great catcher, Yanier Diaz, showed out last year. I think he'll continue that. Signing Christian Walker was a good move, although he's already hurt. Yeah, I just think that they'll be average. I think this is the year that they finally don't make the playoffs off the great run that they've been on. And then the Mariners, the only thing holding them back is that lineup. They can blame the stadium all they want. It's the lineup. Their lineup isn't good enough. It's just not. It's unfortunate, but it's not good enough with that pitching staff. I do agree with Justin Turner. I think they needed to make some moves. They weren't able to, for whatever reason it might be. Really interesting to see. Jerry DePito is a huge trade guy. He didn't make any moves, so it'll be interesting to see at the trade deadline if he's given the go-ahead, I guess. I don't know why he didn't make moves. He's always a guy that makes moves. Him and AJ Preller not making moves was a really weird part of this offseason. But, we'll see. AJ Preller always has the green light during the season. Hopefully, DePito does as well, and they're able to complement that great pitching staff with some great hitters. I think if they had moved Luis Castillo for some bats or a bat, that would have been a great move for them, but they didn't. They kept him, so hopefully that pitching staff can carry them to where they want to go. And then with the Rangers, I have them finally coming out of their World Series hangover from 2 years ago and winning this division. I don't want to say handedly, but I think they're the only team in this division to get over 90 wins, which, depending on how high they get, maybe it is handedly. I'm a big believer in their infield. I love the Jake Berger addition. They needed some right-handed power. They got it. Marcus Semien, still a solid player, above average second baseman. Corey Seager, otherworldly shortstop, especially with the bat. And then Josh Young, if he can stay healthy at third base, he is an underrated piece of that puzzle out there in Texas. They have a straight platoon at catcher with Heim and Higgy and Kyle Higashioka. That'll help Heim stay healthy and hopefully more consistent than he was last year. And then their outfield, Wyatt Langford, going to take that next step. Evan Carter hopefully able to stay healthy with Lodi Taveras also backing him up. And then Adolis Garcia, I think he ends up somewhere in between his horrible season last year and the great season he had in the World Series. And their pitching staff there's more question marks than I'd like, but I also think enough will hit, and they have enough pieces that could falter and get replaced that, Kumar Rocker isn't supposed to start the season in the rotation. That's a top 50 prospect with great potential that if, DeGrom goes down, Eovaldi goes down, Gray goes down, if one of those guys go down, as is typical for them in a season, they have a great guy to come replace him. And I think they're also a team that will make some trades if they need to. So I expect them to win that division. And then moving on to the NL, starting off with the NL East, I had the Marlins coming in fifth, being potentially one of the worst teams in the league. I think that them being in this division is a big part of this. I think if they were in the Central, they wouldn't be as poor. They wouldn't end up as poor with as poor of a record. I know that the changes that were made to the scheduling helps them a little bit. In fact, they don't have to play who's in their division as much, but they still got to play them a lot. And then coming in fourth is the Nationals. I just think they don't have enough pitching. I like Mackenzie Gore. Hopefully Josiah Gray comes back healthy at some point this season. And Cade Cavalli is also able to stay healthy and show some of the promise that he's had for numerous years, but keeps getting hurt and not able to make it. I like James Wood in their outfield. I like Dylan Cruz in their outfield. I think C.J. Abrams needs to be moved off short. I think Luis Garcia Jr. at second base is above average. I love the addition of Nathaniel Lowe as their first baseman. I think that he is a solid, 260 batter with 340 on base percentage and a 450 slug. That's what he'll give you. It's what he gives you every year. I think that's great for them. But yeah, I just think their pitching staff isn't as caught up as their hitting will be. I think for that reason, they'll only end up in fourth. In third, I have the high-spending Mets. I think their addition of Juan Soto was nice, but they've already made some pitching gambles that aren't paying off in the same way they did last year. Last year, signing Sean Manaea was a huge glue piece for their rotation, especially when Senga got hurt. But now they just trade spots. Manaea's hurt and Senga's healthy. But how long is Senga healthy for? How much time does Manaea miss? And then you also have Frankie Montas trying to take the spot of Luis Severino. Severino stayed healthy last season. That was a big boon for them. Montas is already out for 3 months. And I don't expect him to pitch much this year at all. So I just think that their rotation is not good. I think that they're going to have a lot of games that are like 8-7. 7-5, so like stuff like that. Like they'll win some because their offense is going to be really good, but they'll also lose some. And then I think that their defense is a minus across the board. I mean, if you go through their whole setup defensively, you have Alonso is a average at best first baseman, probably below average. I haven't looked at the numbers. Mark Vientos is a below average third baseman. In right field, Juan Soto is a below average right fielder. In center field, if you have Jose Siri, that's great. He'll play great center field, but he's not going to give you much with the bat. Brendan Nimmo is getting up there with age. He's already into his 30s, and he's still got like 6 years left in that contract, so we'll see what happens. But, yeah, I just think that they end up with probably like 88 wins, which I don't think is enough to get much of anywhere in this division. I have the Phillies coming in second. I think that they are what they are. They're getting a little bit older. I think some of the cracks start to show in the age, specifically in their pitching staff. Aaron Nola has a lot of innings on his arm. I think some of the inefficiencies started to show last season. I don't expect him to be what he was when he was a little bit younger. So I think he's a 3-4, and that's what he's going to be for the next few years. I think getting Jesus Luzardo was a huge boost. I mean, you just look at the numbers. If Luzardo is able to be a part of what he was at his best with the Marlins, as a huge upgrade over Taijuan Walker. Ranger Suarez, solid piece, probably a 3-4, just like Nola. And then Wheeler, top of the line starter, but also pushing you there in age and getting pushed in innings. So, yeah, I think that they're not able to reach the heights that the winning team in this division, in my opinion, will be, which is the Braves. Everyone's looking down at them right now, thinking that they're not as good as everyone thought when they won the World Series and then came out and had a great year offensively. I look at the last 2 years for the Braves as different sides of the pendulum. You had 2023, which was everyone in their offense hit their high point, except for Marcell Ozuna. And then in 2024, you had everyone hit their low point, except for Marcell Ozuna. So I think that you end up just evening that out this year. Everyone kind of plays in the middle, and that's able to get them the extra wins that they need to win this division. I also think there's a lot more young pitching staff talent than is given credit for in Atlanta. I love Spencer Schwellenbach, what he's able to do last year and what he's doing in spring training this year. I think he's going to have a great year. Spencer Strider is ahead of his rehab schedule. He's supposed to pitch. I think he just pitched in a Grapefruit League game. He pitched really well, if I'm remembering correctly. 6 strikeouts in 2 2/3 innings, I believe, is what his numbers ended up being, with no hits allowed. So, I mean, he's going to step in, immediate Cy Young potential there, and best strikeout pitcher in the league right now, if he returns to his form. And then you lost Max Fried and you lost Charlie Morton, but I think they have the pieces to compete. They also have the ability to make moves similar to the Rangers. I think that they end up on top, fueled behind a much improved offense and a young upstart pitching staff. Moving on to the NL Central, I have the Cubs winning this division, with the Reds coming in second, the Brewers coming in third, the Pirates in fourth, and the Cardinals in fifth. I don't think there's not much that needs to be said about the Cardinals. I think they are at best average pitching-wise. They are at best average defensive, and they are at best average offensively. I think they're just average. So I think that they'll win some games. I think they'll lose a bunch of games. Probably end up somewhere in the 70s in their wins. And that's going to be good for the worst in this division. The Pirates, as I talked about when we talked about Skeens, I think they pitch well. I think they play bad defense, or they play bad offense. They play okay defense. And that gets them enough wins to finish above the Cardinals, but not good enough to push any higher, especially with the other guys in this division, which I think have a lot more promise. I have the Brewers in third. I think their rotation is lacking, but has a little bit of potential. Brendan Woodruff coming back from injury is a huge boost for them. I think Freddie Peralta had a little bit of a down year last year, some control issues. I think he has a profile similar to Dylan Cease, where if he's on, he's great. If he's not, he's going to give up some homers. He's going to have some problems with walks. So I think the two of them, with Tobias Myers and whatever else they scrap together, they're going to have a great bullpen. Churio, Yelich, if he stays healthy. Turang, Mitchell, Garrett Mitchell, their center fielder. William Contreras at catcher. They have Joe Ortiz moving over to shortstop. Caleb Durbin, I think, is supposed to be their starting third baseman, who is a Bryce Turang type of player, just batting righty, not lefty. So I think they're going to be one of those teams, kind of similar to the Royals, if you remember from the middle of the 2010s. They're going to have a great bullpen. They're going to have enough starting pitching, and they will just like single you and run you to death. I think that's going to be the recipe. It'll get them some wins. It'll get them over 500. But I think finishing at like 85, 86 wins isn't going to be enough to beat the second team here, which is the Reds. I like their pitching. I like their lineup. I don't love their defense. I think Ellie De La Cruz needs to be moved to third base, and that just needs to happen. And then McLean should probably move to short, but they're going to keep rolling him out there at shortstop for now. Speaking of McLean, I think that he is the comeback player of the year for the baseball. I think that he proved a lot in his short stint with the Reds 2 years ago, and then he had an injury last spring training that kept him out for the whole year. Got some work in the Arizona Fall League, is healthy coming to this season. I think that he will show that he is the real deal this year. And then all of it will be helped by a hopefully healthy pitching staff. That is their biggest question mark, is whether their pitching can stay healthy. It feels like Nick Lodolo is one pitch away from getting hurt at all times. Hunter Green throwing octane always. I think it's shown a lot recently that guys that throw fast give up or get hurt a lot. And I think that everyone is kind of just holding their breath, waiting for Hunter Green to be that next guy that goes down. So hopefully he doesn't. I never wish injury on anyone. I'm just looking at the stats and the numbers and the history of guys that throw like he does. Nick Martinez, solid piece. And then getting Brady Singer, I think, was a sneaky good move. I think he fits that park because he throws sinkers, which induce ground balls. He's not exactly a strikeout artist, but I think that he will get like 8.5, maybe a sneaky 9K per 9. And then enough ground balls to not get killed when pitching at the Cincinnati Reds home park, which is very hitter friendly. And then my big surprise this year, I have the Chicago Cubs winning the NL Central. I love their lineup. I really like their pitching rotation. I like their defense. I think that guys like Pete Crow Armstrong in center, great defensive player. I think that he's also going to take a little bit of a step forward offensively. I think that he started to show towards the end of the season that he was getting it, where it came to pitching the pitchers in the majors. He was starting to understand it. Kyle Tucker is a great help to him, all the other youngsters, and the lineup in general. Sliding in the middle there, I think Seihei Suzuki getting moved to DH will help him stay healthy. Ian Happ is Ian Happ and left. I think they need Dansby Swanson to be more like Dansby Swanson this season to help them out. Matt Bush had a good year last year. I mean, even if he just does what he did last year, it'll be a good help for them. Hopefully he can take another step, though. Nico Horner, solid player at second. And then Matt Shaw, as my Rookie of the Year rankings showed. I think that he is a great piece to have. I think that he adds a little bit of power, a little bit of speed to the end of that lineup, and just helps them get to where they need to go. I also think that they have a pretty good bullpen that a lot of people don't understand. I mean, Porter Hodge, I believe he was a rookie last year, really showed that he could be potentially a guy for them, which is a huge help. And then you also have, similar to the Dodgers, they have a lot of like guys they could keep in AAA as extended starters or just swingmen in general. So I think that they put it together and they have a good year and they end up back in the playoffs. So yeah, moving on to the NL West, I have the Dodgers, predictably winning that division. I have the Diamondbacks coming in second, the Padres coming in third, the Giants coming in fourth, and the Rockies coming in fifth. I think you have our third contender for worst record in the Rockies. As typical Rocky teams do, they're going to hit. Ezekiel Tovar, Brenton Doyle, and Michael Toglia, that's their shortstop, center fielder, and first baseman, all have the potential to be plus offensive players and have been plus offensive players in the state of Tovar, who is a free swinger. A lot of Javi Baez in that game as he won a Gold Glove as well. And then Brenton Doyle, great defensive center fielder, swing and miss in his game, but some power and speed as well. And then Michael Toglia, who really started to discover how to hit Major League pitchers in the second half of the season as he was getting full run, and he will get full run as their first baseman. Keep an eye out as well for Zach Veen, who might break camp as their starting right fielder. He's a former top prospect who's lost a little bit of a shine to his prospect spectacle, but still has that potential to continue to take that next step. I think their pitching staff is just horrible, though. I like German Marquez. Whether he can get back to his pre-injury form is a question, but I think everything else is just filler space and will show so as they lose a lot of games while scoring a lot of runs. The Giants I have in fourth. This division was really hard for me to do, to sort out this middle section. I think the Giants have a lot of potential. I don't know how much of it gets fulfilled. I don't like their bottom half of the rotation as much. It's a lot of young guys that need to prove themselves, and you always want guys like that on your team, but I don't want the bottom third of my rotation, or the bottom three guys in my rotation to be like that. Jordan Hicks needs to prove that he can, because he is still young. I think he's only 27 or 28. He needs to prove that he can handle a full season of workload without breaking down, and also keep his walks down, as has been his problem his whole career. Kyle Harrison needs to learn how to throw strikes consistently. Hayden Birdsong is having a great spring training. He could be the Jared Jones type of player this year that breaks out as a young pitcher, but he also could have problems that he had last year, which was just that, he throws into the zone and sometimes he throws two into the zone. And then Robbie Bray's injury issues. Justin Verlander's 42, I think, 41 years old. It's just too many question marks, too many injury possibilities, too much to worry about. And then, as good as Willie Adames is adding to that team, he isn't a needle mover for me. So I think that their offense is just average at best. I think that leaves them in fourth place. The Padres I have in third place. My one caveat to this is they have Michael King and Dylan Cease, who are potentially going to get moved as they are expiring contracts going into this offseason. I think if you see them on the fence, they could fall to 4 because they trade guys away instead of acquiring guys. I think that they took their shot last season, so I think they need to show that they are going to be competitive, like seriously competitive, early. I think they're one of the only teams that need that before the front office starts to just say, okay, well, we're not going to do anything special this year. We're going to ship guys out. So I think that they have the potential to do that, and therefore I have them at 3. I think this more has to do with how I feel about the number 2 team here. The Arizona Diamondbacks had arguably the surprise of the offseason, signing Corbin Burnes to a massive contract, helping to solidify that starting rotation that had some problems after they signed Jordan Montgomery last year. I think he's a great fit there. I think that he's what they need. Taking some pressure off the guys up top. Zach Gallen and Brandon Pfaadt are great pitchers. Merrill Kelly needs to stay healthy. But I think slotting Gallen down and Pfaadt down from like a 1-2 or a 1-3, depending on where you slot Merrill Kelly there, is great for them, allowing Burnes to be the guy that takes that attention, who gets the ball, who's supposed to be their ace, allowing Gallen to just follow that, and Pfaadt to learn from the two of them and follow probably Kelly. I think it's just a huge boost for that whole team. I think it really just helps round them out. And then they were sneakily the best offense in baseball last season, and I think that they upgraded their lineup going from Christian Walker to Josh Naylor. I think their defense got a little worse, but I think that was the trade-off with Walker to Naylor. And I think Corbin Burnes puts it together again. I think that he's more the player that he was 2 years ago than he was last year. I think the second half of the last season showed that. So I think they end up running down the Dodgers, but not able to catch them. And then the Dodgers are the Dodgers. They are what you see. The best team in baseball, continuing to add and spend in ways that other teams just aren't. The only thing that can hurt them is themselves. If they get hurt, if they start to underperform, which is possible because they are getting up there in age. I think something sneaky about them is that they've put a lot of money into veterans, and that has forced them to trade a lot of younger guys. They've kind of pick and chosen their places to keep some guys. It's not like other guys are going to other teams and showing out, but I don't know. I think age will eventually catch the Dodgers before any other team does. Age and injuries. Injuries tried to last year, they couldn't. So maybe age will have a chance this year. Or the Diamondbacks will. Who knows? But let's finish this off with the playoff field. I have the Rangers taking the number 1 seed and the best record in the AL. I had them finishing probably around 95 wins. I have the Yankees in second with probably 93, 92 wins. I have the Royals in third with 89, 90 wins, winning their division. I have the Orioles in fourth, also around 89, 90 wins. The Mariners in fifth, probably around 87 to 88 wins. And then the Tigers get sixth, beating out the Astros and the Red Sox and the Blue Jays for that last spot. Once again, in the playoffs, probably around 86 wins. I think the AL, similar to last year, is going to have a lot of parity, a lot of guys in the middle, a lot of chances for teams to jump the teams at the bottom of the wild card, but I think that they are going to have a very clear top tier of the Rangers and the Yankees, that everyone else is going to be behind them. And then in the NL, you have the Dodgers probably topping 100 wins, easy. The Braves, probably at 97, 98 wins. The Cubs I like 90. I like where 90 sounds, winning their division. The Phillies probably winning like 92 games. The Diamondbacks winning 90 game. I'll give them 90. Yeah, probably 90 at the 5th seed, and the last wildcard team being the Mets at like 88, 89 wins. I think that's enough to get them in, despite what the Padres, Reds, and Giants will have to say about that. So thank you guys for staying with me. I know this was a little bit of a longer episode. I appreciate it. Hopefully, you guys can give me some feedback on what you think of my predictions for this 2025 baseball season coming up. So please let me know what you think. And thank you guys so much for joining me. And I will see you next week.